So who in the audience, show of hands, would be excited to live to age 85? What? Most everyone, right? So, well, here's what the data says. So, well, 40%, almost half of you, will have Alzheimer's. It is the fastest growing epidemic in the world. So we're going to talk about that alarming statistic and all things brain health with our first panelists, Dr. Dean Sherzai and Dr. Ayesha Sherzai, a husband and wife team of doctors, directors of the Alzheimer's Prevention Program at Loma Linda University Medical Center, and authors of the Alzheimer's Solution. They're true thought leaders in how to prevent neurodegenerative diseases. Please welcome Dr. Dean and Dr. Ayesha Sherzai. So, alarming statistic. Let's start with the lifestyle that's causing it, specifically stress.
Well, one of the most important aspects of what we talk about is stress management, because stress affects everything. Stress affects how you eat food, stress affects how you exercise, and most importantly, the hormones, the bad hormones that accumulate in your body and the bad chemicals is amazing. Cortisol, adrenaline, inflammatory factors have been directly related to stress levels.
What about sleep and relationships?
Absolutely. Sleep is the time when our brain cleanses itself. And there are two major actions that happen when we sleep. The brain gets rid of all the toxic byproducts. Remember, the brain is the most active organ in our body. It consumes more than 25% of the body's energy at any given moment. So imagine the toxic byproducts that are produced. We get rid of them during sleep, and all our memories and the information that we gather during the day gets consolidated. It's put in the files, folders, and cabinets, so it's easier for us to retrieve it later. And when we don't sleep, that doesn't happen. And we have alarming statistics for it. A lot of people actually have sleep disorders like sleep apnea, restless leg syndrome. There was one paper that came out that showed that people who have sleep apnea, which is missed so many times in our clinics, the chances of Alzheimer's goes by 70%.
Wow.
So it's something that can be changed, and medication is not the answer. Sleep hygiene and lifestyle is.
So Colleen and I have what I would call a disorder called new parent disorder. We have a 17-month-old.
We've been there.
And sleep is definitely on a shortage sometimes. So,
by the way, that's going to be with you for the rest of your life.
well, thank you.
Yeah.
Great.
We have the two kids with us, and they're 13 and 11, and still the sleep disorder.
Yep.
Now, let me talk about sleep a little more. It's the major cleanse there is. Everybody talks about this cleanse and that cleanse. The amount of cleansing that takes place during sleep, no chemical will ever replace it. We see that in one night, it's a popular thing. One night's poor sleep results in significant increases in inflammatory markers and oxidative markers, including amyloid protein that's associated with Alzheimer's. That's one night. And by the way, you can't make it up in the weekend. Sorry. So it's really critical to create a good sleep hygiene, good sleep program. You want a spa? The most important aspect of your day, ironically, is what you create during sleep.
Wow. What about relationships?
They're good.
They're good. We're pro relationships.
I mean, the cognitive activity, vibrant, beautiful, interactive cognitive activity that makes these connections. We have 87 billion neurons. That's not important. Now, we've had patients who've had lost an entire layer of the brain over time. It's the connections between neurons. Each neuron can make a couple of connections, but as many as 30,000 connections. So when people compare the brain to a muscle, such a disservice to the brain. My gosh. It's the connections that matter. That's actually the most important thing. What determines the connections the most? Not Sudoku.
Nope.
It's interaction. It's human interaction. It's this. We're preaching to the choir. When you
Does Facebook qualify?
It does. It
In
does.
many ways.
It does. Not if you keep taking your own picture. That's not.
I think that disqualifies a lot of people here.
A little bit of self-love.
Okay,
always.
all good. Self-love good, self-love good, too much self.
But extend it. This relationship, the interaction you have with that other person, that's every conversation. what's the statistics, husband and wives? If the husband has dementia, do I?
Right. So the caregivers actually have about 600% times more chances of developing Alzheimer's disease if a spouse has it. And it tells you about the importance of your environment. It tells you about the importance of what you surround yourself with. It's definitely not genetics, we know that. So it's the food, it's the interaction, it's the social activities that you're involved in.
So something there's no shortage of here is purpose. Why is purpose important?
Yeah.
Well, when we were writing the book, we thought we were writing about food, which is important. Here it is, whole food, plant-based. 144,000 patients in the California teacher study. She did work at Columbia University. I did an Advanced Health study, 100,000 people, and the data is over and over and over again. I mean, there's a way to actually assess data, but what came out of this was a weird, different story. Purpose-driven life, almost kind of a story. Purpose is at the center. Purpose connects you to other people. Well, those are the connections, isn't it? Purpose connects you to how you relate with your food. Bad relationship with food, we've been there. Yeah, lots of chocolate and Philly steak and cheese all the other time. It was good. That purpose actually gives you the impetus, the functionality to achieve that aim. Mental connectivity. The most protective thing for brain health is the level of cognitive activity. We use education as a marker. It's not. Education is a rough marker because we know 2 years, 3 years. It's the level of mental activity. And nothing determines that more than purpose. So having a purpose and setting a goal connects more neurons than any other activity in life.
What about, you mentioned mental activity, complex mental activity. How important is that?
Yeah.
I think it's, purpose actually sets that environment, sets that, that picture. Complex mental activity has to be something that is lived. A lot of our patients come in with a crossword puzzle or a Sudoku or some mind games. They're great, wonderful, but when you look at people who have lived a very long time and have been cognitively vibrant, you see that they're involved in very complex activities, things like being a volunteer, being involved in your community, learning music, playing a musical instrument, because from a neuroscientific perspective, when you look at the brain, it's not just the problem-solving aspect of it. It's not just the frontal executive function. It's not just memory. It's all of it together. And so the more complex daily activity, the better.
Sure, but there's a difference, though, between complex mental activity and multitasking.
Oh,
there is no such thing as multitasking, actually. We've all heard about, this statement that we use only 10% of our brain. That couldn't be further from truth. You don't use 10% of your brain. You use 100% of your brain, but you use it very badly. So even if you think you're doing multiple things at the same time, you're doing it poorly. And that's one of the things that is affected in Alzheimer's disease. First and foremost, it's that mental focus and attention towards a specific activity to start from A to Z. That's gone, and that's because of the areas of the brain that are responsible for focus and attention becoming weaker. So multitasking actually causes a lot of problems.
Focus is at the center of cognitive development. If I had to tell people how you can even increase your IQ at any age, it's not really increasing IQ, but your mental acuity, it's around focus. You can develop focus at any age, and that gives you exponential power. So one of the first things you can do is not multitask. Be present, as we heard.
Well,
be in the moment. Be in the thing in itself. It sounds like philosophy. Be in the thing in itself at that point. And when you do that, you can go into deeper and deeper levels. That's complexity and that's challenge. And when you do that, you actually involve more and deeper aspects of your brain. The rest of the time, when you do multitasking, you're surfing the surface. You're just surfing this incredible brain, 87 billion neurons, 1 quadrillion connections, 1 times 10 to the 50th power. Most of the time, we're only surfacing at the very, top, a few 100,000 neurons. Of course, I'm using a metaphor. In reality, focus, that's where meditation comes in. That's where all these activities that bring you deeper and deeper within your cortical matrix. Focus is everything. Multitasking destroys all that.
Technology good for focus or bad?
Depends.
Depends on the type of technology that you're using.
Yeah. I mean, some technology, anything that, for kids, so we've become a binary world. Good, bad, this, that. technology is an amazing thing for kids. I mean, for our kids, Khan Academy, I don't know if you know this, and some other tools, it goes into incremental successes. My definition of motivation is when you create a purpose and you take small steps towards that, the brain's number one function is to link emotions to behavior. That emotion of repetitive successes is the emotion of, I like it, I want to do more of it. There's the first definition of motivation. Any activity, be it electronic or otherwise, that can create that, creates motivation. But other things that are all over the place and you're shooting 15 people at one time, one person is enough. And a game, is really critical that you do that kind of activity.
So you mentioned kids. You know, I'm a new parent, a lot of parents here. Like, how do you raise a healthy child with a healthy brain?
You involve them in the conversation very early. You show them the purpose. And I think it starts from a purpose. If they're connected to it, if they understand why, then they will stick to it. And it's very difficult to maintain good habits in the world that we're living. So it's very important to change the environment because a lot of times to reduce the impulsivity, you actually change the environment and you surround them with good food and exercise and mental activity and sleep. And so it becomes a habit. So they're on autopilot mode. And that feeling of strength and intelligence that comes with it, that's self-perpetual.
Is there one thing you would say, just please don't do that?
One thing?
Goodness.
Or a couple things for raising kids. It's like whatever you do, like we have moments, it's like we're flying, it's like, okay, just she can look at the iPhone just so she stopped. Like what should you not do if you can avoid it?
I don't think we will focus on not do. We focus on do. Because if you focus on purpose outside of yourself, then you never get drowned into the infinite abyss of self.
Sure.
This conversation turned from neuro to all psych, but that's okay. But it is, so we say, create a path that they kind of like, almost like that pigeon experiment, operant conditioning. Oh, they like this, then you put something in front of it and they like it more, and then that becomes a purpose, that becomes a motive force, that becomes their whole movement. So the negation, if you start down the path of negation, oh my goodness,
There's
that's
no
an
end to
infinite
it.
path.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. So something I think people experience sometimes is brain fog. What is brain fog?
Excuse me?
Brain fog.
What? What'd you say?
Brain fog.
Brain fog. So brain fog, it's a conglomeration of things. But so there are times, so it's actually about consciousness. So we don't, 17 minutes, are you kidding? I'm going to define consciousness. But consciousness, being aware, present, and focused. And so that is a chemical process. There are foods. After food, there's a thing called postprandial narcolepsy. In medical school, we all, everybody was asleep. And when you eat certain foods, it lowers your awareness, your consciousness. We know what those foods are. When you do certain activities, same thing. But then there are things you can do that brings up the awareness. So it's either chemical or just being, fatigued and tired and all that kind of stuff. So you can actually control the brain fog. What we've seen in our clinic, when there's chronic brain fog, that's pre-dementia, where people come to us often, now that they know we're talking about prevention. A lot of people say they've reversed Alzheimer's, nobody has. But preventing Alzheimer's, one of the first things we hear is brain fog. Well, we all experience it, so don't worry. But continuous brain fog. And that's usually related to lifestyle. Mm-hmm. We see this over and over and over. When they change, one of the first things is food, their relationship with food, sugar and fat. It's not one or the other. Sugar, take one of them and you change that. All of a sudden, one of the first things we hear, and without ever prompting that, is this fog lifted. And it feels so good. It's more therapeutic for us than to them. So the fog, for most of the people we see, the kind of fog that we're talking about, has to do with food and exercise. There's a reason why a strong relationship exists between leg strength and brain strength. What is that about? Well, the biggest source of metabolism in your body is your biggest muscles, your legs. So if you're going to do any weightlifting, legs. You're going to look disproportionate, but that's okay. And then this muscle metabolizes, gets blood to the brain, and BDNF and GDNF,
Yes.
which is growth factors. So that's another way that you can change brain fog.
So in terms of exercise, like what's the minimum? I know you've talked a lot about blue zones. Like, is it walking a lot, stairs, hills? Like, what's the minimum?
So the definition has changed. I mean, there was a time when, from clinical research and from population studies, just being active and moving would have sufficed, and that was basically the definition of exercise. But now it's a little more strenuous. So strenuous activity, about 20 to 30 minutes a day for 4 to 5 days a week, seems to be the best exercise pattern for brain health in general and body health in totality as well. But specifically for brain health, leg strength has come back over and over again, showing that, as a matter of fact, muscle mass in the leg is actually associated with bigger brains, bigger hippocampus, which are the areas of the brain that are responsible for encoding memory.
Wow. So what's the minimum for someone? Like if we go past fitness, so I know people are going to ask it. It's like everyone here. It's like we hope people bring message back to their communities, and imagine you're riding an elevator with someone, and brain health comes up. Well, what's the minimum? What can I do?
I think I'll tell you what you would like to hear. If you're organizing an event and you're walking around all year round organizing it, that's minimum.
The best.
I'm joking, but in a way, that's purpose. That's meaningful because if you're the blue zones, the places where people live the longest, and beyond that, there are many studies beyond that. It appears that people that move throughout the day naturally, they are protected significantly. And a Harvard study paper just came out that 20 minutes of walking, a little brisk walking, actually significantly reduce your chance of mortality. Forget about dementia, mortality. So walk at least 20 minutes briskly. We say the best walk you can do is a 20-minute walk early in the morning because it serves several functions. One is early morning walk resets your circadian clock for sleep. In fact, it's one of the best things. Second thing is that light, that natural light, sets your circadian. And then it's exercise. And for many of us, it's meditation. So it serves many of the purposes by having a 20-minute brisk walk early in the morning.
Sure. So I want to close with the last question, coming back to how we open, and that mind-blowing statistic, almost half of the population, Alzheimer's, age 85. How do we as a community everywhere in this room, like what can we do?
I think understanding that it's not about one pill, one food, one exercise, that it's a multifaceted and very comprehensive approach that is needed for brain health. And to talk about it, that the disease actually starts decades before it physically manifests, and that we all will develop Alzheimer's disease at some point. We all have the inflammatory processes or the pathological processes in our body going on right now. So we have to get involved and make sure that we live a very healthy lifestyle and actually help people who don't have access to that healthy lifestyle.
And what advice for people out there who may have a loved one, who maybe they're seeing early signs, what can they do to get ahead of this?
The lowest denominator of behavior change is not just one person. It's the community. It's the person. It's the family. And I'll tell you this, as much as we talk about Alzheimer's, the more important concept is cognitive decline. Your cognitive decline starts in your 20s and 30s. And you can actually stop that. Not only can you stop that, you can actually improve your cognition throughout life. So whatever you institute in your life, where your loved ones are, remember the statistics between husband and wife, the same is true with your kids. At the point where your kid's brain is developing, the microvascular processes by the billions, so whatever habits you choose to take into your home, it will actually permeate the entire family. Wow. So, and it will affect you now. That sharpness will actually grow. There is such a thing as wisdom. I organized a conference, a healthy aging conference in Southern California, and the last talk was neuroscience of wisdom, and everybody hated it because they hated the word wisdom. But wisdom is when you grow older and you don't have just vocabulary. You don't just know some places. Now you have context. Now you have purpose. It's three-dimensional thought. You can actually grow that at any age, and that starts with you in your household, in your home. It starts with food. It starts with your relationship with your environment, and you can make a big difference.
We all.
We all. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dean and Ayesha. Thank you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.